Imagine a fantasy film where no actor appears on screen, only puppets, creatures, and entire worlds built by hand. That's what Jim Henson and Frank Oz set out to create in 1982 with The Dark Crystal. Unlike many fantasy films of the time, The Dark Crystal wasn't based on a novel, TV show, or comic book. It came straight from Jim Henson's imagination. He wanted to prove that puppetry could tell epic, serious stories and not just comedy shows for little kids. Henson was inspired by old European fairy tales and the artwork of illustrator Brian Froud, who joined the team as a conceptual designer.
Brian first came to New York and joined a group which at that time was quite small. I think we were somewhere between 6 and 8 people who had first started to play with some ideas and working from some of his early sketches and illustrations. We would take these character sketches to our sculptors, our designers, and they would start building this thing in 3 dimensions. And they would work with it for a while and get it to the point where we could actually operate it as a puppet. And then, on the other hand, we sometimes would start with a way of operating something, the way a character would be moved and so forth, and we would take that and show that to Brian and say, this is the kind of thing, this is how it moves. Would you design it and show us what it looks like?
Froud's drawings gave the film its unique look, half magical and half nightmarish. The story takes place in a mythical land where the Dark Crystal has been shattered, throwing the world out of balance. 2 races emerge, Skeksis and Mystics. Our hero, Jen, is one of the last Gelflings. He's sent on a quest to find the missing shard of the crystal and restore harmony. Along the way, he meets Kira, another Gelfling, and together they face the Skeksis to save their worlds. It's a classic hero's journey, but unlike anything audiences have ever seen, because every character was performed through elaborate puppetry. Instead of Hollywood stars, the real talent came from behind the scenes. Henson himself performed Jen, while Oz performed several roles, including Aura. And Henson's workshop of puppeteers and engineers invented an entirely new technology just to make these characters walk, breathe, and move in a convincing way.
You need to make this part out here responsive to your thumb.
At first, the movie did not do well at the box office. Over time, it gained a lot of popularity. It eventually inspired future comic books, shows, and even novels. So while The Dark Crystal didn't have Tom Cruise or Harrison Ford, it gave us something even better. A completely original fantasy world, handcrafted down to the smallest details, and it remains a testament to Jim Henson's vision that puppets could not only make us laugh, but also make us believe.
Okay, let's talk about The Dark Crystal. So I think the most standout feature of this film is the fact that obviously there's no human actors, it's entirely a puppet cast, and that's really a risky move. You look at Henson's other projects like Muppets and everything, there's always those human characters that kind of ground the story, and this was the first time Henson or anyone had really made a picture with just the puppet characters. And I think the reason that it works so well in The Dark Crystal is because of the world building and the time that was clearly spent by Frank Oz and Jim Henson, co-directors, who clearly created such lore and an intense backstory for these characters and for this world. And I think it really translates because everything looks like it belongs together. Nothing feels out of place. And I think that's also an advantage to doing the puppets, the practical effects, the made sets. This was before computer CG really took over. And so everything looks like it belongs. Nothing looks like something was taken out of place, which I just think in a movie like this is just goes to show Henson's mastery of using the puppets in different situations. Henson was the puppeteer for Jan, and Oz did one of the Skellix puppets. So how those worked, the Skellix puppets were a puppeteer inside the cloak, and then they had the head on their head, which was being controlled by remote operators who were below them, either on a level beneath the stage or to the off stage, kind of depending on the shot. And then everyone involved in the process, this is one thing that Henson said was like key to getting the puppet performance exactly what he wanted, is everybody had a monitor. So like there were tons of monitors for everybody who was controlling a puppet so that they could see how the camera saw the puppet and they could adjust accordingly. So it was really, he talks about it being a really collaborative project, and I think that shows for sure like how many puppeteers. Sometimes you'd have like 4, 5, 6 people puppeteering one character, and so to get that everybody working together in mesh is really impressive. And this film took 5 years to produce, so it's very possible that there were hiccups along the way on those types of things, but I'm glad that it came together the way it did and that they didn't compromise on those things. Some things, Ozzie Morrison, the cinematographer, shot the whole film through like a color filter lens, which is really risky because it's something like he could have done in post, but he chose to do the color lens because he really wanted to make sure those like dark, bright colors came across, the really rich colors came across, and I think that really, again, adds to everything, feels very cohesive within the story and within the set design and everything like that. Another method they used to kind of create that vibe was glass matte painting. So they would paint some of the scenery or like additional features onto a pane of glass and then film through it and then layer the footage so that it created that kind of effect where you could see the different layers without there actually being there. So I thought that was really cool. It's something they more do digitally now, but seeing all the practical effects and seeing people like working on those puppets were really cool. So yeah.
The Dark Crystal isn't just a fantasy film, it's a reflection of its time. Released in 1982 during Cold War tensions, rising ecological awareness, and a cultural shift towards spiritual healing, Jim Henson didn't just create a world, he built a myth. The film's divided world, the skeptics versus the mystics, represents a polarized political landscape. The cracked crystal represents imbalance, and the prophecy of restoration represents a collective yearning for unity.
I have to put
You have to heal the Dark Crystal. Prophecy!
The film follows a hero's journey. It's not just about conquest, it's about healing.
But there is a prophecy. 1,000 years have passed, and now once more the world must undergo a time of testing. Now it must be healed.
Jen's quest is spiritual. He doesn't defeat evil, he restores balance.
Jen is the chosen one. Today Jen's pipe gives no comfort, for today his master lies dying, and a journey must begin. The journey of Jen.
That message of facing truth to fix what's broken feels even more urgent today. Henson rejected commercial spectacle. No human actors ever appeared on screen, just puppets, animatronics, and handcrafted lore. This inspired a more serious, mythic territory and deeper world building in films that followed. It inspired movies like Labyrinth, Pan's Labyrinth, and even Lord of the Rings. It showed that fantasy could be emotionally rich, artistically daring, and spiritually resonant. It shifted the genre from simple storytelling to deeper world building. Critics originally deemed the film too dark for kids, but over time, it became a cult classic. The legacy it includes is comics, novels, and the Netflix prequel, Age of Resistance, which expanded its political and philosophical themes. The Dark Crystal was made and released in a time of Cold War tensions and ecological anxiety and channeled a fractured world's longing for balance and healing. It brought about a mythic sense of unity in the face of division. At its core, the Dark Crystal represents an important question. What must we face to restore what's broken? It's about healing ourselves, our world, our stories. That's why it still matters.
We shattered the pure crystal, and our world split apart. Your courage and sacrifice have made us